Hi, I'm Amy Romeo and welcome to my Spring Fling crafting event where I'm sharing a brand new spring faux leather craft for your Cricut every day for 10 days. Today's project is this really pretty layered flower keychain. You could see I've got different layers of faux leather here. You can use a combination of prints and patterns and solids to really get a fun look. And then I've used a rivet in the center to create that flower center. Now, if you don't want to use rivets, don't worry. I've also created an alternate version of this design for you that uses glue. I have the SVG file for this project in my shop, and I'll leave a link to it for you if you want to craft along with me. So first, let's go over the tools and materials we'll be using to make this project. So I'll be using my Cricut Maker today, but you can use any of the current Cricut machines because they all cut faux leather with the standard fine point blade. You can even use the Cricut Joy for this project as long as you have that longer 12-inch Joy size mat. Now I'll be using my purple strong grit mat to cut the faux leather for this project. If you're using one of the Joy machines, you can use the green mat, that's fine. The faux leather that I'm using, these are just sheets of faux leather. They're 9 inches by 12 inches in size, and they come from my favorite faux leather supplier. I'll leave a link to them for you. These cut really well, and there's a variety of prints and patterns that I know you're going to love. Now to attach the rivets, these are 8mm rivets, and I'll leave a link to these for you. These are really fun because they have an enamel coating on top of them, so they really create that fun pop of color for a flower center. As I mentioned, if you don't want to use rivets, I'll show you in the next step how to create this project with just glue. So the layers here on our project, the rivets hold the petals together, but the base layer is a folded over piece of faux leather, and there's glue in between those two layers. And I use fabric glue for that. I really like Beacon Fabri-Tac, but you could use the craft glue or fabric glue of your choice. Then for the rivets, we'll have to use a hammer. Any old garage hammer will do. And then there's little tools that come in your rivet box that we'll use as well. The lobster claw clasp that I put on these is large, and here's just a regular key ring. So I like these because these are easy to hook onto things like purses and book bags and lunch boxes, things like that. But you could just use a regular key ring if that's what you have. Then if you want to add a faux suede tassel, you can do that using just regular jump rings. These are a little larger size. I think these are 8mm. You could use 8mm or 10mm jump rings along with some jewelry making pliers to open and close those rings. So let's go ahead and hop into Design Space. I'll show you the two different options for this design, and then we will get our faux leather layers cut out and our little flower keychains assembled. Starting with a blank canvas in Cricut Design Space, you'll click on Upload and then Upload Image, and you'll browse to where the unzipped SVG file for this project is saved on your device. Click on it to select it and then click Open. You'll see a preview of the two different versions of this project. Click Continue and then Upload. So as I mentioned, I was going to give you an option if you only want to use glue and you don't want to use rivets. So on the left-hand side, this is our rivet pattern. You can see those holes for the rivets through all of the flower layers. This one on the right does not have any holes inside the flowers. These are meant to be glued together. Let me go ahead and ungroup this so I can show you something very quickly if you decide to use the glue only version. So all of these petals are the same except for that hole. And then on this version, you can cut this top flower center. Since you won't have the rivet to create the flower center, you can cut this top circle to be your flower center either from faux leather and then glue it on top, or you can cut it from heat transfer vinyl and press it on this top flower. So I'm going to delete this one since we won't be using this one today, but as I go along in the tutorial, if there's something I think of that you'll want to pay attention to when you're using the glue only version, I'll be sure to mention it. So you could see all of these petals are different colors, and that's just to show you the different layers in the pattern. These are all going to cut using the same cut setting, so we can put them all on the same mat to save some time. So the easiest way to do that is just to select all of these layers, and then right up here on this little question mark, this is where our colors are. We can click on the question mark and then we can choose any color, it doesn't matter what it is, and when it makes all of our shapes the same color, then they're all going to be placed on the same mat for cutting. So now everything's on the same mat. I'll go ahead and click the Make It button. We're cutting our materials on a mat. And here you can see everything is on the same mat, so it will be super easy and efficient when we cut. So we want to toggle the mirror button on first because faux leather cuts in reverse. And then what I'm going to do is drag my little flowers apart from each other so that I can put 3 different prints or patterns of faux leather down on this mat. So I'm just sort of dragging them to easy markers. So here I'll put something along the 6-inch line, and then here I'll have one element to the left and the other elements all the way to the right. The other thing I'm doing is dragging my shapes a little bit away from the edges of the mat, so when we put some blue painter's tape down, we have room to do that. Okay, so I'm going to click continue. The material setting I'm going to use is faux leather paper thin. Don't worry that your material is not paper thin. This is the cut setting that I use 99.9% of the time when I'm cutting faux leather. If you don't have this setting bookmarked as a favorite like I do, you can click on Browse All Materials here and search for it. If you're using the Explore Air 2 machine, you'll need to turn your dial to custom before you can find this setting when you search. So faux leather paper thin, more pressure, that's going to help us get a really nice cut. And here's that reminder that we're just using the regular fine point blade that comes with all of the current Cricut machines. So let's hop over to my overhead camera. So we'll go ahead and get our faux leather shapes cut out, and then I'll show you how to assemble this keychain. So I've gone ahead and trimmed my pieces of faux leather so they're just slightly larger than the flower shapes that are going to cut. And I do that because a smaller piece of faux leather is less likely to shift around on the cutting mat, which is another way to help us get good cuts. So I'm just going to take each piece of faux leather, turn it over so it's pretty side down, and then place it on the purple strong grip mat right in that spot that I saw these shapes are going to cut from in the mat preview screen. So each one, just flip it over. And then another way we're going to help make sure these pieces don't move is we're going to apply some blue painter's tape on all sides. So blue painter's tape can be easily lifted up. It doesn't leave any residue on your mat or on your materials, and it can be reused. So after I make this cut, later on when I remove the scrap pieces of faux leather, I'll also remove the tape and save it so I can use it again. So we have our faux leather paper thin cut setting with more pressure all ready to go. So we just need to load our mat into the machine and begin the cut. So our mat has cut one time, and before you unload the mat, it's really important that you take a moment with a sharp weeding tool or a pin pen like I have and lift up the edge to see if it looks like your cut went all the way through. This one looks really good. Just take your time and go through, take a look. If your cut did not go all the way through, don't worry, that happens a lot. All you need to do is rerun your cut again, and you can do that as many times as needed as long as you haven't unloaded the mat. So to rerun your cut, you would just press the cut button again, and it'll pull your mat back in and repeat those cuts. But this one looks pretty good, so I'm going to unload the mat and remove the shapes. Now I'm going to remove this shape first, and what I want to do is get this shape gluing so that it can start drying, because I do want to show you how to assemble this keychain. So let me set this aside for just a moment. We're going to get out our glue. We're going to glue our shape onto the keychain and get that going, and then we'll continue. So I have my Beacon Fabri-Tac. I also need a heavy book. So I have my favorite Hamilton book here. And what I'm going to do is flip over my flower. Make sure you punch out those holes. If you're not using rivets, you're going to do the exact same thing. You won't have holes, but you're still going to glue at this point. We're going to take our key ring here, this large center part. You're going to just take your flower and fold it up and thread it through so that the key ring is on the middle. Just going to lay this right back down, and then using a really good fabric glue, we're just going to apply glue all over the back. You want to avoid that rivet hole with glue. Now if you're using the glue only version, then you can go ahead and glue right in the middle. What I'm doing is getting close to the edges, but not all the way to the edges. Now I'm going to just take my top layer here, fold it over. Then you can pick it up and start to press these layers together with your fingers. What's important is you want to make sure that the edges of your layers line up. And if you have any excess glue that comes out, you want to wipe that away now if you can. I always like to check these after about 10 minutes underneath my heavy book and just wipe up any excess glue that comes out. Now the reason we're doing this is to get a really nice tight seal. If we just left this here to glue, then it wouldn't glue nice and flat and firm together. So we're going to leave this all lined up neatly and then just place it underneath our heavy book. And I would leave that to glue for about an hour. Like I said, you can check on it in about 10 minutes, wipe up any excess glue, but let that dry for about an hour for best results. Okay, so let's go back to our mat here and we'll remove our other flower shapes. Again, you're going to want to poke through those holes to get the center out. So our flower has had a little bit of time to dry. You really do want to let this dry for at least an hour, whether you're using rivets or just gluing your flower layers on. You want this to be nice and dry and with a tight seal on the edge before you start going on to the next step. But I want to show you what happens next, so we're going to continue. So we're going to use our rivet next. The rivet has two parts. Both of them have the sort of the cap, the outside, the circle part, but one of them has a post and the other one is just the cap. So we're going to use one of each of these. And then inside the rivet box, you'll find a round metal piece. This is called a strike plate. This is going to create some support underneath our faux leather when we're hammering. The underside has sort of a round circle. You don't want that part. You want the nice flat part. And then you'll also find this piece. There's a flat part, which is what you're going to hammer on. And then there's a curved part, and the curved part is what sits on top of the rivet. So first, let's layer our flowers together. So we're going to start with the post. I'm going to have the circle on the bottom with the post, and we're going to apply our flowers from the smallest to the largest. So we're going to take the post here and just push it through one of the top small flowers, and then take one of the medium flowers. And here you can kind of turn these. You can either make the petals staggered, or you can have them all stacked up exactly the same direction, whatever you'd like. Just know that once you hammer the rivet down, you won't be able to turn the petals. So make sure the petals look the way you want them to before you hammer it closed. So now put those two petals onto the base. I'm going to flip this over. And there's our post again. We're just going to put now our medium petal and our last small petal. Okay, so now we're going to take the cap, the other side of the rivet, and we're going to snap that on. And you can see we can still move these petals around, but we really do need to hammer this down for this to be complete. So we've got our strike plate here. On our work surface, we're just going to take our flower and place it on top. So the rivet is on top of the strike plate underneath. We're going to take the curved part here of the tool, just place it on top and hammer about 4 or 5 times. Now that has squeezed this rivet tight, and it's got all of our layers of faux leather nice and secure in there. Now I didn't apply any glue underneath the petals because I like the lift and the movement that you get from having the petals loose. But if you wanted to, you could have glued those down as well. Now, if you're using only glue for this project, what I recommend doing is gluing these layers together. If you cut your center from heat transfer vinyl, then press that center, that heat transfer vinyl center, onto this top flower separately, and then glue all of your flower layers together. If you're cutting that circle center from faux leather, then you can just glue your layers in order and end with the little center. Isn't that cute? So the last thing to do is just open up this jump ring and attach a faux suede tassel. These are really fun. They come in lots of different colors, and they also have different colored metal caps. So make sure you get one that has a metal cap that in the same color as your keychain hardware. I just opened up my jump ring here with my pliers. I'm going to loop it on this little swivel hook and close it back up. And there you have it. I really hope you enjoyed this project and you're going to make some layered flower keychains of your own. I would love to see them. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.